In 1990, if you worked for an American company, you almost certainly worked in America. Your job was tied to your location. By 2005, you might be designing a product in California while your factory was in China, and your customer service calls were being answered in India. This was the outsourcing revolution, a seismic shift in the global economy that moved millions of jobs overseas. It was a story made possible by a convergence of technology, politics, and a ticking time bomb called Y2K. For most of the 20th century, the global economy was fragmented. The Cold War divided the world, and high tariffs and transportation costs made it difficult to run a truly global business. But in the 1990s, three powerful forces converged to change that. The first was technology. The rise of the commercial internet and the laying of undersea fiber optic cables made it possible to send vast amounts of data across the globe, instantly and for nearly free. The second was politics. The fall of the Berlin Wall opened up new markets and new pools of labor, and free trade agreements like NAFTA in 1994 lowered the barriers to moving goods and capital across borders. And third, global logistics and shipping became incredibly efficient. As journalist Thomas Friedman famously argued, the world was becoming flat. The old geographical barriers were disappearing. The first wave of this revolution hit manufacturing. Companies in high-wage countries like the United States realized they could dramatically cut costs by moving their factories to low-wage countries. This led to a massive deindustrialization in the American Midwest, the so-called Rust Belt. But the revolution didn't stop there. The same forces that allowed for the outsourcing of factory jobs soon applied to white-collar service jobs. Thanks to the internet, a phone call could be answered just as easily in Bangalore as in Boston, but for a fraction of the cost. Call centers, software development, medical transcription, accounting, any job that could be digitized could be moved. India, with its large English-speaking and technically educated workforce, became the epicenter of this new wave of business process outsourcing. But there was a hidden catalyst that supercharged this trend, the Y2K bug. In the late 1990s, companies around the world were panicking that their computer systems, which used a two-digit code for the year, would fail when the year 2000 arrived. They needed armies of programmers to go through millions of lines of legacy code to find and fix the problem. There weren't enough programmers in the US to do the work on such a tight deadline, so they turned to India. They hired armies of Indian software engineers to audit their code. It was a massive, time-sensitive project, and it proved that large-scale, complex IT work could be done effectively and efficiently from halfway around the world. The Y2K bug was the trial run that launched the Indian IT outsourcing industry into the stratosphere. So if a company can save money and a consumer can get a cheaper product, does it matter where the job is located? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. The core economic principle driving the outsourcing revolution is labor arbitrage. Arbitrage is the practice of taking advantage of a price difference between two or more markets. In this case, the asset being arbitraged was labor itself. If a software developer in the United States costs $100 an hour, and a similarly skilled developer in India costs $20 an hour, a company can capture that $80 difference as profit. It was a simple, powerful, and for many companies, irresistible financial calculation. The effect of this global labor arbitrage on high-wage countries was profound. When companies can access a global pool of cheap labor, it puts downward pressure on the wages of domestic workers, particularly in manufacturing and routine service jobs. A worker in the US is no longer competing with the worker down the street. They're competing with a worker in Vietnam or the Philippines. This threat of outsourcing gives companies immense leverage in labor negotiations and is a key factor in the wage stagnation that has affected the American middle class for decades. The main argument in favor of outsourcing is that it benefits the consumer. By lowering production costs, companies can offer cheaper goods from clothing to electronics. This, in theory, raises everyone's standard of living by increasing their purchasing power. But this creates a direct conflict between our interests as consumers and our interests as workers. The same force that gives us a cheaper television at Walmart might also be the force that eliminated our neighbor's factory job. The traditional economic answer to job displacement from outsourcing is retraining. The idea is that displaced factory workers can be retrained for new, higher-skilled jobs in the growing sectors of the economy. But this has proven to be incredibly difficult in practice. The new jobs are often in different parts of the country and require completely different skill sets. For many communities devastated by outsourcing, the promised transition to a new economy never fully arrived. Then, outsourcing meant moving a factory to China or a call center to India. It was about moving jobs to people in other countries. Now, a new wave of outsourcing is emerging, driven by AI and the gig economy. Companies are outsourcing tasks not to other countries, but to algorithms and a distributed network of freelance workers who might be right down the street. The principle of finding the cheapest possible labor remains the same. Only the geography has changed. The outsourcing revolution taught us that in a flat world, capital is mobile, but labor is often not. Money can cross borders instantly, while people and communities are left to deal with the consequences. It forces a fundamental question about the purpose of a national economy. Is it primarily to produce the cheapest possible goods for consumers, or to provide stable, well-paying jobs for its citizens? Follow along for more thought-provoking history at the Human Timeline TV.